Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My name's Oliver and this is Peter, and we're two amateur photographers who just kind of like watching horror movies. And so this week we decided to kind of sit down and look at the movie Hush, which is a movie that's kind of a predatory, insane killer outside of a cabin in the woods type of film. And then you
It's
also
like
have
cat and mouse sort
it's
of.
very much a cat and mouse
Yeah.
kind of movie. And so we decided to sit down and watch that and offer our very enlightening commentary.
So enlightening.
I have
You'll
three
be
pages.
so enlightened after.
I have 3 pages of notes.
I have none.
It's been and then discovering at the end that we really didn't need a lot of notes.
No, notes is good because like the last one we tried, we both.
we
blanked
failed
on
pretty hard.
things.
We tried to do one on Midsummer, and that movie's
That's also a chunky movie too.
it is, and there was a lot going on there, and like so much symbolism.
The symbology was
It was
overwhelming.
It was off the charts. So this one was a little bit more
Symbology.
straightforward. What did you think of it overall?
Overall, I get thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was really like competently shot.
Yeah.
I thought it was, like it was.
It's nothing,
It's been done before.
Sure.
And I think it's been done better.
Sure.
But I think the added kind of idea of her being deaf it added
And
a
mute.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
and mute as well. That was the thing, is you didn't hear any screams in this movie.
No.
I think that was the most, I don't know what want to say, like the most jarring part, but then like when you're watching it alone in the dark and like
Like you
somebody's
scream for her.
Yeah,
in
you're in
fact,
your head,
like,
you're going,
Amanda
"Ah."
was upstairs, and I was just like, like it wasn't that scary, but it was just like,
Yeah, I don't think I ever felt scared during this movie.
yeah,
but
you felt tension.
Yeah,
sure,
there's
and
definitely
some thrills,
tension.
but not scared.
Yeah. So I guess like the main character, her name was Maddie Young, and so she's a writer in the woods in her little cabin. She's kind of in isolation for the most part.
By choice, maybe.
By choice, yeah, because you get right off the bat that she was in a relationship with Craig.
Yeah.
And it obviously went south, so they weren't together anymore.
Yeah, and possibly something with her family. I think,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, because it's like you get to meet her. I believe it's her sister.
No, I think that's her friend, her neighbor.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really, she seemed to be disconnected from her family and any sort of relationship and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so she's just kind of alone out in the woods, and she's a writer. And so she wrote a book, and it was called Midnight Mass. And so
Yeah.
she's a famous kind of author, or
Yeah.
moderately famous author, I guess.
Yeah.
And apparently she's really good at writing endings, so she's not Stephen King.
And I think people know going in that she's deaf.
Yeah, because
It's
I think
kind
that
of,
was probably in the trailer.
Hush.
I didn't
But
watch. I don't watch the trailers. 'cause
Right.
Just too much, especially for horror movies.
Yeah.
Don't want anything.
Well,
given
I
away.
didn't either, but like I guess someone told me and I knew. She was
And by the
deaf.
name of the.
But I
title.
found it interesting. Like it starts off almost like ASMR with like you hear all the sounds
Oh,
of her
yeah.
cooking. It's just like cracking eggs, sizzling of asparagus, and
Yeah, a lot of those like close up kind of macro shots of
yeah,
stuff in
and then
pans.
just the sounds.
And I love the fact that she's
And
a
then it
horrible cook.
Well, because she can't hear what's going on, and she's just like, no, add some salt, still no.
And then just later on, she's just throwing it all in the garbage. I get the impression that her former boyfriend was probably the cook in the relationship, and she was probably the breadwinner.
Well, I wonder how being deaf affects cooking, right? Because like being a chef once in my life, at one point, well,
Big part of your
big
life.
part of my life, sounds is important,
Right, you could probably easily burn things or overcook
Yeah,
things.
and
or
like
undercook
even
things.
knowing how something sizzles or how something
Yeah.
it's a tell.
Yeah,
For
and then she mostly kind of feels like she has, like, volume is a big deal for her too, because she senses like vibrations and stuff like that, which is actually something that played out really well in the movie.
Yeah,
when the killer is
and they set it all
stalking-
up at the start.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they did a lot of good stuff with like the sound design. People were on point for
Yeah.
this one. It was really cool. And
Well, I did watch it on computer speakers, but
I watched it upstairs, like lights off, good speakers and
Yeah.
everything, and I think that's
I should
definitely a good
sort
way to
that out.
watch. Yeah, I think we need to just start just doing this at our friend Jaden's house,
Yeah.
because he's got like the projector
surround
screen.
sound.
And I think that would be the best way to watch a film like this,
Yeah,
especially.
absolutely.
And maybe, I think what I got to start doing too is getting the Blu-rays, because just the quality, like streaming, you get those pixelations in it, and I think if we end up watching a couple more of the good films, it'd be nice to actually like watch the full spiel of how good it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it opens up, and she's cooking alone, and she's I think Apple was a sponsor of
Yeah, it's
of this. It's all Apple.
all the functions.
Yeah, all the sounds, the ringtones, and everything's all Apple. So she's alone, and she has her neighbor come over, and her neighbor's name was Sarah,
Yeah.
right? Sarah, and her boyfriend John is also going to be in the film later
Yeah.
on. So
he's mentioned at the start.
yeah, he's mentioned he's coming home soon.
Yeah.
And so Sarah comes over to just kind of talk with her, and she's trying to sign and everything because she doesn't quite know how to. So she's taking classes with John, I think. And so they're kind of signing back and forth and just having kind of basic conversation and
Yeah.
talking about her book and the endings and all that.
Yeah.
So just kind of close by friends. And then she also has I think a brief conversation with her sister. No, I'm sorry, friend. No, that's later. That's later.
That's later. But she's texting. So
Yeah.
I think Sarah, as she's coming, and someone else.
Yeah.
She wants to text Craig, the boyfriend, or something. Or
Yeah, she FaceTimes him twice and then hangs up, and then
Yeah.
he FaceTimes back, and then
there's also a cat that she.
Yeah. Oh.
Her cat, bitch.
Excellent name for a cat.
That she tries to get its attention with shaking the food. Right?
Every time I see a pet in a film, I'm like,
You think-
thing's dead,
Yeah,
man.
it's gonna be hanging nailed on a wall, or
Especially because it's like, I think it would be a good way to scare her in the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's only 5 characters.
So
and-
yeah, spoiler alert. We will spoil these movies for people who have not seen
Start to
these movies.
finish, this
Yeah.
movie's going to get spoiled. It's going to be a discussion and a kind of a run through of everything that happens in it. So they talk about the book for a while, and they sign back and forth, and they have some excellent kind of miscommunications with signing, which is funny because there was like kissing and then like
Stories.
storytelling or something like that.
She
So
mixed it up.
so they actually do that fairly well. I think they really kind of explore. Because she had Maddie, the main character, had bacterial meningitis, so she's deaf mute, and so she's not able to speak as well. And I think we just mentioned before that the lack of screaming and sound from her in the film is actually kind of interesting too, especially like horror movies. You think about like scream queens and people who are just
It was the opposite.
It was the opposite. It was like very silent, and then he's the bad guy, the man who's never given a name throughout the whole film. He's the one who's doing the talking, and usually it's kind of a role reversal because you have guys like Michael Myers or Mike Myers.
Who are silent.
Michael Myers, not Mike Myers. I'm really gonna kill ya. But yeah, so it's kind of an interesting role reversal. What did you think about? We'll get to the bad guy because right away, Sarah comes back and
It's evening. She's throwing out her food, and it's dark. And Sarah comes back and is banging on the door, and Maddie
she's
can't-
bloodied up.
Maddie can't hear a thing.
And
Right.
so right away, Sarah gets killed. She gets stabbed pretty brutally against like
Yeah.
the front door.
Where if Maddie was facing the other way, she would have seen it, or if it wasn't deaf, she would have heard it as well.
Yeah, so you can see her like banging on the door. It's a really good shot,
Yeah.
anyways, and it plays on that thing that's going to keep coming back is that silence and her kind of lack of awareness of her surroundings, and it's really good for the audience too because you're just like, just look out the window.
Yeah. And then you do see him once she's kind of dead. He's banging, and he realizes
she's deaf.
she's deaf, and then you kind of see him contemplate, and then he could, you see him kind of want to have
Because
some fun.
you
with
get the
it.
impression right away that he's somebody who likes to mess with people.
Yeah,
Like he's there to like watch people struggle in
Yeah.
pain. So
I like the mask too. It was kind of.
Yeah.
Usually you see mask and they're kind of clowns, but it's kind of like almost someone else's face.
Yeah.
With this kind of like curious look.
Yeah, I thought the
almost.
mask was really good in the beginning, and I think it was maybe a miscalculation to not have the mask for the whole film.
Yeah, or at least for longer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because like the mask was interesting too because he had like almost like dark marks under his eyes. I thought
Like
the
he was
design.
tired.
Yeah, it was interesting,
Yeah.
and so
And he
yes,
almost reminds you of someone. This mask. I don't know. It reminded me of.
it almost looked like a Jabberwocky's mask, but
yeah,
like
but more
scary.
Yeah, and just more character. But yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting, anyways, and I think that was a good design. And I actually wish they would have kept that for the majority of the film,
I agree.
because, in all honesty, he wasn't a very imposing character or a very scary character.
No, he was more. Well, and we can get into it. Like he almost had like something to prove, and he, with later on, he'll say something where he knows he's gonna, his size plays into the factor.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's almost like,
and even his choices of like weapons,
yeah,
and that like he's not a character who's going to be there to like overpower people.
he's just kind of sadistic. You
yeah,
know?
like he's just somebody who
So
like you get the impression
it's more his motivation, like, and his lack of, because you never find out his motivations.
Well, and you see too when Sarah gets murdered that she has a crossbow bolt in her back.
Yeah, she gets shot as she's knocking. Yeah,
And so you really get the impression that the bad guy is a hunter.
Yeah.
And so you get, it's really a game of cat and mouse.
It is, yeah.
And you can just get the impression that he's trying to do all of that he can to kind of torment her into coming out of the house.
And he explicitly says that too.
Yeah. Because it leads to the next scene where she's talking to her friend Max on FaceTime, because it's got to be the Apple product.
Or sister.
Or her sister. I'm not.
Friend.
Yeah, wasn't really clear who it was.
I think you're right. She's the sister.
It seemed to be the sister type relationship, anyways, or best friends.
Yeah.
But they have like a conversation, and
he sneaks into the house
right behind her.
Yeah.
And then Max notices him and asks, "What was that? I saw something move behind."
Well, actually, as she's trying to write, he's standing behind her, and then she gets a call, a FaceTime call by Craig from Craig.
Yeah.
And as he realizes that he's going to be seen, he steps away. Then he calls her. She calls her. And then during that scene, he kind of grabs her phone and Max notices. Yeah.
Yeah, and she just kind of dismisses it as like the cat in the background. And then they kind of have like a quick conversation, and it just kind of fills out Maddie's character a little bit more, that she used to be from the city, she's now living in isolation, and that it's not good for her to keep being alone as she has been, turning the page on.
They
notes.
talk about if she's talked to Craig or whatever.
Yeah, so like that part of it was I think that was a good character building note. It was just simple, and I think like all of the character development is just quite subtle in it, and I think that was actually
and it's there even though there's minimal cast. And
exactly.
Minimal time to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And and then
she tries to, because she blames it on the cat.
Right.
So she opens the door, tries to get the cat's attention, and then she starts getting messages on her Apple computer.
And they're
from
pictures
her phone.
For her own phone. And that was a creepy part, where it's like point of view shots of her sitting down on the couch to write.
Yeah.
Her walking around the house looking for the cat. So it's like somebody
and
standing
then
behind
her sitting there looking at the messages, and it's the view from directly to her left. And then she's like, looks left, and the door's still open. And then, it's the first kind of, well, not the first, because, the murder, but...
it's, her first view of the killer.
And so she runs to the door, knowing that the door's open. We all know the door's open, and then you see him. You see him,
and like he rushes up to her, and she shuts the door just in time.
Yeah.
And... yeah, I think the tension in this movie is really good.
Yeah.
And a lot of shots happen at that front door, too. Like, there's a lot of...
it always comes back to that point, almost.
And you're always like... it's interesting, too, because you're thinking the whole time, there's so many windows in this house. Like, it is such a naturally lit house.
Yeah,
like,
it'd be great for photography.
Yeah, the whole time you're, like, wishing, though. You're like, why couldn't it be a house from the 80s where there's, like, one window in the house, and it's this tiny one that you could never escape in a fire?
Well, because she's deaf, I think it's probably designed so she can use her other senses.
Yeah.
Right?
And see people coming, especially in the countryside. It would be like she's able to.
Do you think that's an odd choice to be isolated when you're missing? When you're deaf and mute.
She seems to have like a pretty like.
And you see she's capable in the movie.
You see she's really capable. But I think it was interesting too, though, because she's really obviously quite social, and like she's isolated, but she's making friends and trying to kind of build.
It's kind of like she's picking and choosing.
Yeah, I think so, because I think it was one of the interesting things she said about the city was that it was too noisy. And so and I guess
I missed that. That's great.
Yeah, and it was kind of a funny joke that she had there, but I think it was. Yeah, I think the choice to be out there makes a lot of sense, but that house with all the windows just scares the crap out of me, and it definitely adds to the tension, because she almost has like this, like he's wandering and circling her house all the time like a shark.
Yeah.
And then she's watching him like 360 degrees through this very well lit house.
Yeah, from one window to the next.
Yeah, and he's using them to look in on her.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, I think that was very interesting. And so she sees him, rushes to the door, shuts the door, and then basically the next part is she tries to lock all the windows and the doors around the house so that he can't get in.
Yeah.
And then
he's trying to get to one. She's locking them as he's trying to get to the next one.
and then she knows she's got to communicate with him, but obviously she's mute, so that's not going to be super easy. So you get the impression with this like one move that she's quite smart, where she writes on the window in lipstick, and then uses a flashlight to show that she says, I didn't see your face, will not tell anyone, boyfriend's coming home soon. And he calls that bluff pretty quickly. And he says, like, I know there's nobody coming.
Because he read her phone.
He read her phone.
He quotes a few.
And he was listening to the call, I think, between her and Max.
Right.
And so, so he calls her on that. And then he gives the line, I can come in whenever I want. And it'll be when you wish you were dead. And so it's like...
this is when he
he takes
off his mask. When she's, when it's like, I didn't see your face. He doesn't care about that.
No.
He just wants to do his thing.
Yeah. So you get the impression he knows. He's confident in his ability to kill her.
And you're right when he says, when you want to, like, when you want to die. I'll wait till then and let's have
So you get
fun.
the impression very much that he's a sadistic person. Yeah. But, like, now we can kind of talk about him. And I think it was a bit of a miss for me, but I understand, like, if you're in her shoes, how terrifying it would be. But like,
and maybe it's partly the, it's a little more like if he was larger and more physical.
Yeah.
Because she has a deficit. You know, and it's not necessarily, but like it's a little more. Maybe that was the choice.
Yeah. No, I
but he's not the most imposing character.
No, I think it's actually, in a way, I think if you're afraid of realism, it's probably more terrifying because it's more realistic. It's like this kind of small. He definitely has like a bit of small man syndrome.
Yeah.
And he's sadistic and creepy, and like he's obviously not all there.
Yeah.
And
because again, you never know his motivations.
No.
You don't know why he's there, why he's killing them.
Well, and I'd mentioned too that there's movies that had done this better, like the similar tropes, but I think they've done it better. Like The Strangers, I think did it better.
Right.
And I also think if you go back, I think it's the early 2000s rendition of When a Stranger Calls. I don't know if that one was better necessarily. I think this one was a better movie overall, because those early 2000s movies, some of them were really bad.
That's every decade.
Yeah. But yeah, I think other versions have done the same thing better, but I think this was a really competent version of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't find him... I was never scared during this movie. I felt the tension, but I honestly wasn't ever experiencing the terror.
Exactly. They kind of make him like just a guy who likes to hunt. So he's capable. He's able to hunt.
Yeah.
And that it says that he's patient as well, and it shows that he's patient.
Yeah.
And that he does think about what he's doing. Right?
Yeah, he seems to be like quite a...
They give him some menace with the tattoo on his neck.
It's kind of a funny tattoo because it looks really fake, or that it just got done. Because like I'm looking at your tattoos right now, and like they've kind of like faded in, but his is like black.
Yeah, it's deep and fresh and kind of like...
It doesn't look very prison tattoo-y either. It looks like... because I think you see a bit of it later on. It seems to go down pretty deep on his neckline and stuff. So he's got like... Maybe he's got like a full bodysuit under there. I didn't see what the tattoo was either. Did you?
No, it's kind of like some pattern or smirk. No, it wasn't clear. But I think the scariest thing about him is the fact that he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And he just wants to mess with you.
Yeah.
If anything, that's his biggest strength, I guess.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like that's the scary part of him is his sedition, and he's not stupid either.
No.
Like he's not a bumbling kind of character.
No.
I think that's where you sometimes get with like the hulking menace like Jason, or
they're strong and they're evil, but they're
not fast.
They're not intellectual.
No, and he plays a little bit more on like he definitely plays a lot more on the cat and mouse thing, and he's like setting traps for her in a way. And one thing to mention too is her. So we talked about like the vibrations that she's able to kind of feel around the house. And she also has this smoke alarm or the fire
Oh
alarm.
yeah, that's
That's
important because that's
important.
set up in the early
Yeah, so when she
minutes.
burns her food early when she's talking to Sarah,
Yeah.
she burns her food really badly, and this fire alarm goes off, and it is like,
It's first. It's also it's flashing as well quite brightly.
yeah.
And then it's established that it's so loud that it's vibrating.
So she can
Thing-
feel it if she's
exactly.
sleeping, and so
And that's on the wall there in the kitchen.
yeah, and so right after they have that interaction at the front doorway, she goes and tries to get she goes and gets a hammer and a knife, and then she goes and kind of barricades herself. I think in the bedroom.
room. He's also slashed the tires.
Right.
Because there is a car in the.
Of the Jetta.
Was it a Jetta?
It was a Volkswagen Jetta.
Thank you for saying it correctly or incorrectly. I think it's correct, but whatever.
Yeah, so he goes and he kind of takes away any mode of escape, because obviously that would have been probably the first thing to turn to. So again, he's showing that intelligence and that foresight of sealing off the exits.
Yeah. So she's barricaded herself in one of the rooms, and she's put a shelf in front of the door, and she's sitting between two windows with her back to the wall and her expecting him to come into the door.
Yeah. And he just never does.
No.
And he then she hears a tapping at the window. You see a
You see a
shadow.
shadow,
Oh,
yeah.
that was good.
And you think it's him, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's instead the corpse of Sarah.
Yeah.
And he's just standing there holding her up like kind of a puppet and tapping her hand on the glass, which is a pretty good image. Anyways, scares her really badly. And
Yeah.
you see her drop the hammer and then back out of the room.
Yeah.
And then she's it's interesting because she's not this uber powerful character who's just gonna strike back at him. It's a very, again, the realism is really
Yeah.
what creeps into this movie.
Yeah, you definitely can relate to both.
Yeah.
Both characters in a way, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And
you don't think that's outlandish.
No, and you don't hear her cry audibly either. You hear her breathing and stuff. She's always it's her breathing that's the audible portion of the film, because since she's mute, she doesn't. I think I can't remember what it is. It's you can't operate your larynx or something like that. So
Right.
it's there's no vibrations in what she can do. So she just has these breathing sounds and kind of the gulping, gasping sounds, and it's it's pretty. It's scary in its own way, and it's more disturbing than anything else.
Yeah.
And so it's just
and through that, without those noises, you're still able to feel her pain, even if
yeah,
you know what I mean.
yeah, exactly.
If,
Especially,
in fact, maybe even more so than if someone was screaming. In
I
some
think
ways.
so. Yeah,
especially later on when she's hurt, and you're just
oh man,
and you're kind of just silently. I went from both silent and
Yeah.
I was just she's I'm just as well.
Yeah. Or you make the sound yourself when you're
Yeah,
listening to
for
her. Yeah. So yeah, she arms herself, and then she ends up dropping one of the weapons right away. But you can tell she's just pretty terrified of what's about to happen, and so she tries to get out of the house. That's kind of her first instinct, is to kind of exit the house. And it's to get Sarah's phone.
Exactly. So she has a flashback, and then she distracts him
With the car alarm.
Was it the car alarm that one?
I think it was this one, because later on she tries to distract him with the flashlight.
With the flashlight. So it's the car alarm. It's going off. He runs to the car, and she watches him. She makes sure he goes.
Yeah.
And
then she goes to
the
the window
window
where Sarah was
is propped up against I think.
and she tries
the
to root through her pockets and try and
Yeah.
kind of fish out the phone. And it's scary because he's coming right back around too, and then you see it coming. She's trying to get back in the window, and then she just gets it in the nick of time and shuts his fingers in the window, and then shuts his arm, and then she hits him.
His fingers.
Yeah.
And so there is this tug of war for the window,
yeah.
and it's going up and down, and she knows she's gonna lose because he's stronger than her, and then she sees the hammer on the ground,
Right.
so she kind of lets him win, and kind of picks it up and just kind of
And she hits him with the forked end.
Yeah,
of the hammer
and it's
right in the
right
forearm.
in there.
Oh, there is some good hand gore in this movie.
Yeah.
Things.
Oh yeah, later on too.
There's so much hand gore in this movie. You're just if you're sensitive to that thing, this is not your movie.
I am actually, you know.
Just fingers and stuff. You're just
Yeah.
oh, that would hurt so much. So he gets the hammer right into the
And you're
forearm.
kind of, it's the first
it's the first conflict between these two characters.
Yeah, and she wins that one, and it's a pretty good win, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
but then he holds up the cell phone that was in her pocket, and it's all smashed.
Yeah, and he kind of just puts it on there, and he types it up. And it's all slow, you know. He lets her watch everything he does.
Yeah.
It's all kind of like cerebral.
Yeah, it's definitely like he's still like, even though he's injured, he still wants to like, he's still enjoying the hunt.
Yeah.
Which is maybe I did miss that in terms of the scary part of him as a character. He's just
Yeah.
playing all these mental games.
Yeah.
And he's pretty good at doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So the next part is, I'm consulting my notes here. Yeah, this is where she starts thinking about running for it. And this is where she ends up outside and under the porch. Because she realizes,
So
like,
he starts circling.
yeah, he's like a shark.
And she just watches him, and she sees like moments where there's some blind spots.
Yeah, and so
Right.
she times it.
Exactly.
And so she sneaks out into the under.
And there's a scene too where she's at the front door, the back door, the veranda door,
the patio
the
door,
porch door.
Where everything important takes place at like this patio door.
The largest clear glass door, and she's kind of there, and then he's looking in,
Mhm.
and it's just like, but yeah, and then so he ends up at the other side.
And
of the
she
house.
times it to run underneath the porch, and I think her idea is to like then kind of sprint off into the woods and make her get away.
Once she has a chance. So
Because you got to think that's like your best mode of escape is just running into the woods. But if you're not that fast,
yeah,
you might get caught. And he's clearly
and
a hunter.
He knows the
Yeah.
forest.
And so she does make it under the porch, and there's this good little bit where he's above her, like walking on
Yeah, because
on the porch.
he goes full circle, and he's like, he can't see her.
Yeah,
And then you see again like her use of vibrations, where
she's feeling the floorboards.
the floorboards, and she realizes he's right on top of her.
And she's like controlling her breathing because she knows she can't make sound, because she's not going to hear the sound she makes, but he's going to do that.
Yeah.
And you got to imagine too, he's good at hearing, just being that sort of predator hunter guy. And especially like I was thinking about it when I turned the movie off, it was dark and quiet last night. You can hear everything. So,
Exactly. So I did wonder though, like, sorry, did you just say he couldn't hear her footsteps?
Well, like she's trying to conceal them all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And like
but I feel like you'd hear that
I think so.
on a porch, and you know, it's
Maybe.
a movie.
Yeah. Maybe she's got one of those really loud fluorescent lights that's at like the front porch. Just a
Oh,
nice-
he's also cut the power to everything, right?
Yeah.
So we should
Oh, that's an
establish
important
that.
thing.
So
No Wi-Fi.
She can't call, no Wi-Fi, because she tried to do
the phones have been confiscated or destroyed.
even through her phone.
Yeah.
Which is a function that Apple does.
Yeah.
If
If you,
the Apple offers.
I mean, Apple is pretty great. I don't know. Except for in this situation, it's kind of like a funny negative advertisement for them. But so she actually runs away and makes it to the tree line, but then he's got the crossbow, so he takes the shot, hits a tree right close to her, and she scrambles back inside, makes it just in the nick of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that crossbow.
Exactly, the tension again. The tension, and then it breaks.
And I think the crossbow is a good choice for a weapon as well, because it's yeah, I think it's just it adds to like the trappedness of her, because like you think, oh, she can make it to the woods, but it's like he's got a long range weapon, and he's good at using it.
Exactly, and it's not just a gun where you can shoot
No.
through the glass or.
And she's still thinking about ways to outlast him and outmaneuver him, and so she gets back inside into the upper levels this time, and she decides this time I'm gonna make it out onto the roof, where maybe she can just like be unseen. I'm not exactly sure what her plan was at this point.
I think it was just like it's the next
Best place
option.
to be. Yeah, because if she can be up on the roof, I could kind of see that. Like you'd have the upper hand, you'd have the high ground.
Well, she gets on the roof and was able to throw the
flashlight.
and so yeah, so she watches him.
Yeah.
And once it's opportune, she kind of climbs out the window, throws the flashlight the opposite way she wants to go, and he takes the bait, and then she kind of.
She was gonna. I think she was gonna sneak off the roof and try and run away.
Run away, exactly. And as she's climbing down the lattice, you just.
Yeah, the crossbow bolt strikes
Yeah,
right in the leg,
and no scream, and you're
No.
just like, ah.
yeah. Oh. Yeah, Ace Ventura full on. And oh man, it was just a brutal scene to watch. And then he's coming up after her, and she's like climbing up onto the kind of the upper patio area,
Yeah,
or just the roof. And
as he's climbing,
she kicks him off and takes his crossbow.
Yeah.
So he kind of like lands on his back, wins himself, and then she's got the crossbow. Oh
No.
oh yeah, there was
Because
that
he
other
shoots.
He shoots once, and she like does the ultimate yoga master.
Yeah.
and
he
dodges
misses.
this.
And then so it lands on the roof.
This is why you got to stretch, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. And then, and then he realizes that he can just like quickly scuttle up there. And as he does, she kind of like attacks him with it.
Yeah.
And with that, she's able to take the crossbow and the arrow.
And then she gets back inside, and
she has an arrow in her
leg, and she pulls that out, and she's bleeding badly.
Yeah.
That's another thing that adds another level of tension is the urgency, because now she's bleeding out.
Now there's a time.
There's a time constraint on her surviving, and so she gets back in the bedroom, and she's loading this crossbow, or trying to load the crossbow, and like she's kind of threatening him.
Before
with
that,
it.
she kind of like she cleans the wound, she takes it out, and it's this whole scene of her pain without noise again.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're right. She's trying to like she sorted herself out. She has a weapon. Like now she needs to be able to use it.
And he notices that she's not able to load it.
Because like those things are hard, because like to shoot it with that much like force.
Yeah.
Like there has to be.
And I think she wasn't doing it quite right, because I think you usually have like a mechanism to pull the string back, because you have the lock
leg thing,
and so like you can pull that back. I've only seen crossbows operated a handful of times.
Yeah, me too.
It was a good weapon choice too, because it's like got a lot of power. It's not just like a bow and arrow. It's like it's like a gun basically.
Yeah, exactly. And she's not able to cock it basically.
No. And she like again the hand gore. She's just wrecking her hands on this like crossbow string, and like. You see it like 10 times. She's like pulling back and snapping it on her fingers, and like her hands are just destroyed, I think. And at this time,
he sees it through the window, so she knows that even with it, she can't.
Yeah, she can't come after him. So he walks around back to the patio door, and this is when John shows up, big man John, because this is the boyfriend of her neighbor, and he comes over and starts looking around.
Exactly. He knocks on the door, and then he.
Yeah, and then bad guy, the man, walks around the corner and like pretends to be a police officer
with a flashlight. So it's with authority, he's speaking and he's using lingo.
Yeah.
And the flashlight in the face. So if that's anyone and someone's talking, you'd assume, right?
I think so, especially in the countryside. I don't think everybody's always in full police garb and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think John's a little dumb.
Well. He did eventually catch on.
It was pretty slow though. It's like, John, this is too suspicious, like way too suspicious, especially if it's like is his girlfriend or wife involved, and so like it's just.
Well, the guy had. Sure, he had at first he was saying it all with confidence.
Yeah.
He rushed me. I'm not. I'm not in uniform because I was just.
Yeah, because the man says that like he got rushed by somebody who was in the house, because John notices that all the lights in the house are off, and then there's this lipstick message on the window. Yeah. So obviously something bad happened here, and he knew that Sarah.
And
his
he's
wife, had come
balancing
over.
it all, right? Like, does it take you? But yeah, you're probably right. It was probably not as quick as it should have been. And then the man is able to take his phone with the excuse to call it in, because he says they took his radio and
yeah,
like
he says they took my gun and my badge and my radio, because I'm the worst cop ever.
Yeah, and after exactly, and as they're having that conversation, John is noticing the wounds.
Yeah, and then the biggest telltale is like earlier the man had taken the earring from Sarah, and he drops this little golden earring, and that's when like everything comes together finally for John.
And when he finally does exactly, and then it's actually a good plan where he says, I actually think she might have a key in a flower pot, and he points him to a place that's lower than him.
So he'd have to bend over and examine
exactly. And Johnny's a big dude.
Yeah, John could easily take him in a fight, so you could definitely tell like the bad guy is trying to figure out how to take him down.
Exactly, because even in that conversation, he's saying that the guy who rushed him was a big guy like John.
Yeah,
because
John's huge.
He's big. He's
like
tall.
A
he's
6'4".
broad. Yeah. So on John's part, that's smart, where he tries to get the man into a vulnerable position,
and he takes up a rock.
Exactly.
And he's gonna obviously whack the guy in the back of the head with it.
And then
the worst timing.
He's about to.
And at that exact moment where he's about to like crack the man over the head with it, Maddie comes to the window and like
Tries
bangs
to
on him.
warn him.
And then he
not
gets
knowing
just
what he's trying to
stabbed in
do.
the neck and right in the
Exactly.
carotid artery. And that's the moment where John loses.
Yeah, but he
essentially.
puts up a fight.
Oh yeah, John.
And buys Maddie some time to sort of think and plan.
Yeah, because she sets up. Again, she's still trying to load the crossbow. She's still trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
And he kind of like, so John fights, and the whole time he's like, I would the man's like, I would have lost.
Yeah.
And he kind of gets him into
Oh, yeah,
a
John,
chokehold.
Yeah, John gets the
for a
rear
while.
naked choke on him. He
And
didn't.
if he wasn't...
Yeah, if he wasn't bleeding out so badly, he would have killed him.
Exactly.
But it was interesting. He got like the full lock on him, but he didn't get the hooks in.
Yeah. You'd know.
So like it was pretty close. He sunk in the choke, and I think he had him kind of like out for a bit because it disorients him a little bit after that.
Yeah.
And this is where like we realize there's going to be a showdown
Exactly,
between these two
'cause-
characters because she's bleeding out, he's been injured somewhat, and then. Well, I guess he's been disoriented a little bit, and he's got
He's got
his hammer wound and stuff.
Exactly.
So
And
they've
then
both done a little damage to each other, and then he goes for the cat.
Yeah, but before that, she goes through this mental talk with herself, and then you actually hear her voice inside her own head, and she's just going through her options, like if he gets in, it's over. He's stronger than you. He's got a long range weapon, and it's accurate. And she comes to the conclusion that she has to go on the offensive.
Yeah, and I think that's good because like it's so funny because she's like praised as an author who has good endings to her book. So she's like trying to figure out the best ending to the book.
exactly.
And she does come up with the solution that's like, I can't hide because I'm going to bleed out. I can't run away because I'm wounded in
And
the
there's
leg.
scenes of all these endings.
Where she's just getting like, she gets her head bashed in and
Hypotheticals,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah. So she runs through all of the scenarios and arrives at the conclusion she's got to attack.
Exactly.
And so she is, this is when he starts like going for the cat, which is named Bitch.
Exactly, because he's at the car or something.
Having a smoke. He took John's cigarettes.
Yeah. What does he say? These things will kill you. And then you see Bitch.
Yeah. The little fluffy white cat. And you're like,
And I got a soft spot for cats. I'm like, oh, I hate you. And I thought it was going to happen too.
Just before he kills the cat, takes the crossbow bolt right to the arm.
Yeah,
Or it's
in
kind
the
of like
shoulder.
the meaty shouldery
Yeah.
part of his body.
And then you see her on the porch. So she's ventured out from a safe zone and like taken a shot.
Yeah.
And and so she's been able to she was able to cock it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a pretty decent shot.
Yeah.
If you don't know if she's ever shot it before.
And she waited until
Probably
he
not because
wasn't
she
moving.
wasn't exactly.
Because like that was the other thing. She's just like, you don't even know how to, like in her head. She's like, you don't even know how to load the damn
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, what if he's moving? You have to get up really close to hit the kill shot.
Yeah.
So she actually waits for him to be still with the cat.
And the
then
cat
takes
kind
the
of
shot.
exactly. And then he goes for her, and so she tries to run back. Well, she does run back into the house.
And this is the goriest part
Exactly.
of the film.
Drops the other bolt.
Yeah.
And
then
then
gets
she
it.
tries to get it, and because she tries to get it, because she gives up, she realizes she can't, and as she gives up, she has it, and then he slams the door on her hand.
on her hand. And then he like,
On her, not just her hand, like not her hand, her wrist.
Yeah.
So there's a good portion of her hand sticking out, and you just see it. You're like, oh, it's so vulnerable.
and then he just goes like full American history X on that
he
thing.
steps on it, and then he like grinds it, and
Oh.
she, again, she's like, you don't hear the scream, but she's in agony.
You hear all of the crunching
Yeah.
and the squishing though. Oh, it's bad.
So her hand's messed up.
Oh, it's so messed up.
And you see it's all like right
Everything's
angles.
sideways.
Yeah.
I wonder how they did that.
And
for,
you know
like,
what's funny though? So like, she pulls it back. She's in pain.
Yeah.
And you'd think this is probably a good time that you could, if you're the man, she's in agony. He probably could have got in,
Yes.
but either he's chosen not to or whatever,
I
knowing
think
that
he still wants to torment
knowing
her
and
more.
like he knows he's hurt her, so he's like, I can still probably do this, and so he kind of lets her
Yeah.
pull her hand in and lock the door again.
Yeah. And then this is where he says, "I'm going to come in."
Yeah. So they have this dialogue, right? Because she's writing things with the blood from her leg.
Yeah, she's just like dipping it in there.
And he's
and,
like, I'm going to come in, and she's like, she writes in, "Do it," and that pisses him off.
yeah, it's always so.
You finally see him actually break, like
Yeah.
emotionally, right? Like
Yeah.
he's like,
and now
oh.
he's like going for the kill now. I always think of like The Simpsons there though. It's just like when Sideshow Bob is writing letters to Bart. Die, Bart, die. Use a pen, Sideshow Bob. She's like dipping her finger into the blood and writing the message.
So yeah, and they're pretty close at this point between the glass.
Yeah, and she's lost lots of blood. She's
can
in
see it in
all
her
kinds
face.
of pain. And she goes up and hides in the bathroom
And
and
he
faces
runs
the door.
He runs to the trunk, the boot of the car, and pulls out a tire iron. And as she's going to the bathroom, and you can see her in agony. So he's smashing it in. You can see this happening. You can't hear it.
Yeah.
You don't hear a single bit of that. But she goes to her laptop and kind of writes her like goodbye message.
Yeah, died
saying,
fighting.
"Mom, Dad,
I love you.
I love you." Died
Yeah.
fighting,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's
And
the,
I was like,
that's the ending to her book because it's like
Yeah.
where she was writing the
Exactly
ending to her
that
book earlier,
too.
but it's like now it's the ending to this
To her
particular
life,
story.
or
the ending
what she might think.
Yeah, and like
is
the glass,
the-
like it's
the
interesting
first
too. I'm glad what they do with the glass as well. Like they show that it's like really solid
Yeah.
patio door.
So he
glass.
could have got it in if he
couldn't have
wanted
got-
to.
No, it's not as simple as like he could have just crossed the threshold
Yeah.
of the door easily.
With a rock or something.
And that's when she goes. You're right. That's when she goes and hides in the bathroom, and she's all kinds of woozy, obviously, because her hand is just like it's like a bag of
Exactly. So she's in.
jelly.
So there's the door. She's in front of the door. There's a bathtub behind her, and there's kind of like a window to her right, but also behind her as well. And they kind of show her kind of like get hazy vision, and then you kind of see this like twinkling in the background, and you kind of think it's part of her, of the film trying to show her condition.
Yeah.
But then you see like this shadow kind of like settle behind her, and you realize that
He's in the bathtub.
and she
right
didn't
behind
hear
her.
a thing. Like, well, she didn't hear it, and in her condition, right?
Yeah,
So
she's not able to sense
she
things.
probably
like
blacked
she was.
out for a second too, right?
Yeah. And then he's behind her, and then he just has this one moment where he gets his victory laugh. But his
Yeah.
victory laugh ends up being what costs him everything.
'Cause
Because right when he goes for the kill shot on the back of her neck, because he says maybe I can make you scream,
And then
which
laughs a bit.
and then he like turns.
She
and,
feels
like,
she feels his breath on her
her
neck
spidey sense
Yeah.
goes off, and she just turns and stabs him right in the knee.
as he's stabbing as well, and he misses, and she gets his left knee. Oh man, that would hurt. Hey, at the joint too, probably.
Everything that happens in this movie
It's
looked
quite
painful. And then they just break into the all-out fight in the living room,
Yeah.
and this is insane.
Exactly. So
And this is so like he gets her down, starts choking her. And
well,
then-
she runs out. So he's in pain in the bathroom.
Yeah.
She runs out, tries to go for the other knives on the counter, but kind of like doesn't make it because she's lost so much blood. And then as she kind of falls down, and she's only like a couple feet from these knives, but you do see kind of like there's a can of something on the ground.
right.
And so, but you see her kind of pass out
Yeah.
up against the counter, and then he comes out, and you see, and you think she's gonna die.
But then she like wasps sprays
Exactly.
him in the eyes. Oh, that would hurt. I bet that stuff would sting too.
Oh yeah.
And it's got like it's accurate too because like the wasp spray actually has like it has
it's like
range.
It's range,
rangy.
and it's like
very focused.
yeah, exactly.
And so good choice of weapon. And so I don't exactly remember the fight's pretty chaotic between them, and so they go back and forth a little bit.
And then she uses the alarm. Oh yeah, it goes back and forth exactly. And then
And this
she
is when
realizes
that fire alarm comes in.
she
Yeah.
needs kind of like an advantage, and
So she presses like the fact that she can't hear by setting off this alarm and this really bright flashing light, just putting it right in his face near his ears and stuff. So
Yeah.
she daredevils him.
yeah. But he does get the upper hand again at one point because he kind of mounts her and
Yeah.
is choking her.
And this is the point where her life is flashing before her eyes. And in like the last second, she reaches over next to her, and like her fingers just clamp around a corkscrew.
Yeah.
And then she gets him right through the throat. Good bit of gore there.
there and comes out to the other side.
Yeah. So she gets him in a vital point and
Yeah.
just dead for him. He dies pretty quickly, I think, too. And then she gets her phone out of his pocket because that's the only phone that's still alive. Manages to dial 911.
Yeah, and you think she kind of like lays there, you think it's him, but she actually gets up.
She gets out and goes away, waits on the porch, and she's just like waiting for the police to come. The cat's there. Everybody's okay. And it was, I think that was a good ending. It was a very short film.
Yeah.
80 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
81 minutes.
So it's a really brief, easy watch through, you know.
But it's like not boring at all. No point is it.
No, like from scene to scene, like it's really linear and like but each scene adds something. Like it's just stacking stuff in the film. So it's good. I really
good pacing and
So, you know, how would we rank this? What about let's talk about like the plot overall. It's a really basic plot.
It is basic, but just really well executed too. You know?
Yeah. How would you compare it to like some of the other ones you've seen? Like, you saw The Strangers?
No, I have. I don't remember it.
Right. Okay.
That's with Liv Tyler, right?
Yeah, that's Liv Tyler.
Yeah.
I think the cinematography in that one made it more frightening because in this one,
and there's multiple people trying into the house, right?
And I think honestly, the fact that they were wearing masks the whole time made it actually more frightening. Because this guy, he's just
could have left it on and talked as well. Like they eventually take it off for sure.
Yeah.
You know, but I think you're right. I think you're right with
I think they were leaning heavily on the realism.
Yeah.
And you know,
because masks have been done so often.
I think so.
And they wanted to kind of like, you know, they put it in there, but it's more just like, you're right.
I think it's only there for 20 minutes of the film. Like it's there for 2 scenes maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's just to add a bit more mystique to the character or
at least
whatever
initially.
It is. Yeah. Or maybe he's just covering his tracks initially, and then when he realizes he's got the upper hand, he decides to just play the game.
Because the neighbor's dead.
And then it's just person against person.
Yeah.
Did you find it scary at all?
Not scary. There was a couple of parts where I was, you know, when she's reaching for the phone in Sarah's pocket and she's kind of like half out, half in, and she's just kind of like, and I'm just like, get back in, you know. It's like, so it's not scary, but again, just like the tension. It's like, get in. And and a couple other times where, you know, when she got shot in the leg and she's trying to get back in the window. Things like that, but not scary, no.
Yeah, and when John's out there, you're like...
It's a good thriller.
Yeah,
you know?
Good thriller.
Yeah.
How much of it was horror? I mean, I guess it is, like, when you put the hand gore in there, it becomes kind of horrific.
And then the mask kind of, you know, there's elements of both.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, it's not like a slasher.
Maybe not a horror, but it's a scary movie, not a horror movie.
Sure, yeah, psychological thriller.
So
I mean, it is a horror movie.
Scary.
It's just within that
thriller?
genre. I think it's just because there's so many other ones like The Strangers and like Stranger Calls It, or When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah.
It's like those home invasion type movies. I think there was also one, Funny People. I can't remember what it is. I meant to watch that one at one point, but maybe we'll watch that in the future. But it was I thought it was pretty good. I think I'm so big on villains though, and I'm so big on like the bad guy being kind of more imposing, and the actor just wasn't that scary, and he wasn't like deranged enough. He was just like
just a
Bob
guy
from down the streets.
But I think that was the point as well.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
And maybe because, you know, we're fairly worldly people, you and I, that sometimes those themes aren't as effective on us, right?
Right, yeah. And I think once you step into the character shoes, and they do,
exactly.
They do a good job of
if you step into her shoes, then, you know, he's definitely, you know.
Yeah, and especially because she's at such a marked disadvantage, being that like he's really capable of hunting and stuff.
Exactly.
Then it's interesting too. She ends up using her deafness as an advantage in the end. So that's
and
cool.
You kind of knew that was going to happen, right?
Yeah,
like, it's going to be what wins the day.
Exactly.
All the things that she uses to compensate.
It's interesting too, because like usually like this, like if she were screaming or crying or making more noise, she would have been easier for him to hunt too. Mm-hmm. And her muteness is
because he would have seen her.
Yeah.
Or heard her.
And you rarely even hear any sounds that she makes except for like the intake of breath and that. So yeah, I thought it was a really well done film. Yeah. I don't know if I'd watch it again necessarily. Once you know the conceit of the film, it's all there. There's not much symbology.
We only use correct terms here.
Yeah. And the correct term is symbology. Thank you, Willem Dafoe. Yeah, I mean, I think it was really well done. Obviously, it was a lot done with very little, because it's just one setting. They walk around the house. They make you really that front door is so iconic to the shots in the film that it really. And then the bedroom and then the bathroom, like you really kind of know the layout of the house, and that just draws you in a bit better. So they did a really good job of the setting and all that too. So I think it was more than competently shot and fleshed out very well.
Yeah, and I mean, the director, he that's all he does, right? It's also the main character's Katie Siegel.
I can't remember.
It's their husband and wife, I believe.
It's a Blumhouse.
Oh, they're together.
It's a Blumhouse film, right? I think.
It's Mike Flanagan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I looked up the IMDb on this, but we're not film critics by any stretch of the
Blumhouse might be the production.
Yeah. That's the studio. Yeah. I don't know anything about the back end of movie production.
So she's in like Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So she's in quite a few things. I recognize
and some other ones
John.
that he's
I recognize John from The Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing why you think he's dumb.
Yeah. I just make that connection right away. And then I recognize the man. He's from The Belko Experiment, but he's actually a good character.
I haven't seen that, and I think that's Mike Flanagan again, eh?
Yeah, and John C. McKinley's in that one too.
Right.
But he's a creep in it, so that's too bad. He's not Dr. Cox. But yeah, overall, really good film. I don't know, like, do you want to rate this film? I think we should use the Roger Ebert star scale, like the out of 4 one. So, like, what would you give it out of 4, including half stars?
I'll give it a 2.5.
Yeah, give it a 2.5 or a 3.
Or a 3, yeah.
I think
I might go 3 just because it was really well executed. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There was not much I'll give it a 3.
Yeah. I think overall it was like really well done. It was nothing new, but it was like something fun to sit down and watch. And I think because the film start to finish was like really interesting to watch.
Exactly.
And the new additions that they put into it, it wasn't just like a standard trapped in a house movie.
Well shot, well executed.
Yeah.
Well acted, mostly.
I think her acting was exceptional.
Good, yeah.
I think maybe on the part of the man, not as much.
But again, maybe by design.
By design, I don't think so though, because like his dialogue with John was a little bit like funny.
Sure.
And so I think that's maybe the only part that lacked for me was him. But she was exceptional.
Yeah.
I think she was really good in it. Yeah. And I like John. John and Sarah were the perfect couple next door for like to just sprinkle in there.
She's from Grey's Anatomy.
I didn't want to say it, but you're right.
I knew it straight away.
So overall, really good film, a good fun one to watch, just on Netflix there. So if you're looking for something quick and easy to watch.
Netflix Canada anyway.
Yeah, Netflix. I don't know about the other regions, but yeah, I think it was a really good film. Did something new and fun. So if you want to go and see that one, check it out. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun watching it. So guys, thanks for watching or listening to the podcast. This is the first one we've sat down to actually do. So we're going to try and make, it's hopefully the first one.
We'll release.
Yeah. There's been some failures.
We may release those in the future.
Us stumbling through. I gotta say, the funniest part about us shooting the Midsummer one was the fact that we didn't light the background, and so it was just us with big shadows behind us. Like
maybe that's our thing, you know?
Maybe that's our thing, yeah. Incompetent shooting. That'll be our thing. So guys, thanks for watching. We'll be watching some horror movies in the future. I think we're gonna get like a big hat, a horror hat to draw names of movies out of to watch in the future. So we'll let you know in advance. But for this week, we're just gonna leave it at that. And yeah, thanks for watching and listening. Have a great week. This is Peter and Oliver. Actually, I said your name. I was gonna let you go away. Anyways, this is Oliver and Peter. Thanks for watching or listening. Have a great week.
Bye.